All right, today we're going to talk about how to graph using sine and cosine and what that's going to look like when you have both the amplitude and the y displacement. So with our first graph, we're going to draw that one in here. And we're going to start with the function f of x equals 2 cosine of x minus 3. So a couple different things here. First thing we want to do is we want to identify what the amplitude is. Amplitude is the number in front of your function, which is 2, and your y displacement is going to equal -3. So we're going to start with those two things. So first thing that I do is just what I said, find the amplitude and y displacement. The second thing I do is draw a dotted line at the displacement. So let's see if this will come in. I have a few issues on delay here. All right, so the displacement here is down here at -3. So I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3. That's -3, and I'm going to put the dotted line down there to represent that. All right, from here, we have to make note of the next phase of this is going to be making a decision about what am I doing here when it's cosine. So cosine, is it Ohio or is it high O low O? And so we've been talking about these the last couple of days. And you want to know this or have a way to know how each of these begins. And this one is high O low O, high. And so that's significant and important. But we're graphing it from this dotted line. We're no longer doing it from the x-axis. So we're going to back up a second here and put our scale in. For our sake today, all of the graphs that we're doing are going to have the same scale. We're going to go off of the turns that we did on our graph, on our circle. So we've got 3 pi over 2. There's the third one, 2 pi is our fourth one. And that quarter turns a significant importance to your actual graphs. So here we go. So we're going to begin, and we're doing high. That means from my displacement, I've got to go up 2 units from that, and I start at a high point, and I put my dot on there. Then I go on. This is the first quarter turn you're on. Then you go low, down at the bottom, down here. Then you return on. So your O's are going to be on this line, the displacement, and I'm going to return at a high point value up here. And the high is actually at -1. And then you draw your curve in. Now you're going to notice that I'm going to draw these rounded because I can continue to mark the on, the low, the on, and the high points because a periodic function will continue and be periodic and keep going. It doesn't end just in a certain time frame of that. Okay, so that's the basic starts of that. Let's do a couple more equations here as we get started. Practice another one. So I'm going to draw in the y-axis again. I'm drawing the x-axis. And we're going to use the same scale. So I'm going to mark the pi and the 2 pi there and get our function in here. This time, f of x is going to equal 3 times the sine of x plus 1. All right, so again, what's the amplitude? That's where you're beginning. Amplitude in this instance is 3. Our y displacement is going to be found at 1. And so our graph is going to begin with that y displacement. Okay, we've got our scale in here. We know that this is 1. We need to mark at least one of those lines with that. All right, so the displacement is there. So this amplitude is now going to go above and below that displacement line here. This is my O. This, whenever I say O, I'm on. What is sine though? Is sine the same as the last one, high O, low O? Or is it O, high O? In this instance, sine is Ohio. And then we go back to low and back to O. I always kind of say a little funny acronym is when you drive to the state of Ohio, what do you see? When you enter the state line, you will see a sign, an SIGN sign, but in this instance, we're talking about sine when we drive to the state of Ohio. So I use that as a way to do that. So we're going to start on the axes, and from there we have to go up 3 to its high point. So I've got to go all the way up here 3 units above. I'm going to come back on. There's my O again. I'm going to be 1, 2, 3 down. So my low will be down here. And then we're going to return back on the axes. And we'll join those together. So O, high, O, low, O. And we can keep going. High, O, low, O. And those will repeat with each other. So when you look back at this, the amplitude, you should be able to see in here. The amplitude will be the distance that your graph is above each max, and each minimum will be 3 units above and below this midline here through the center of your graph. And that's how you can kind of test and see where your line or your graph falls and whether you did your amplitude right. Okay, so let's do one more graph in here to show you some things with this last graph. So I'm going to draw this in. All right, this time we're going to do f of x equals -2 cosine of x, and let's do +3. All right, so the amplitude. Our amplitude is equal to 2. And you're going to ask, why not -2? Well, amplitude is defined as the absolute value of the max minus the min. And we're going to take half of that times that. Well, when you look at absolute value, it's always positive. So while this may be a negative value, the amplitude has to always have a positive sign. Always a positive sign. The displacement, the y displacement this time is also 3. So we're looking back here. What do we have? Do we have an Ohio or do we have a high O, low O? So think about that as I get the displacement drawn in. My displacement is up here at 3. I'm going to mark the rest of my scale. My x-axis is, the second line is pi. The fourth line is 2 pi. And we've got to decide, what are we doing? Are we doing Ohio or low O? And in this instance, for this particular one, it's cosine, and it should start at a high point. We should go high, O, low, O, high. But we looked the other day when we get an opposite sign out in front, as we have on this one with the negative here, that changes this graph to low, O, high, O, low. So we're going to have to go low 2 numbers. So we're going to go down to the negative, or to the positive 1. Then we're going to go on. Then we're going to go high. And then we're going to go on, and we're going to return to our low point down over here. And we'll join those together. Now remember, those are mins and maxes. So that means that your graph won't be higher or lower than those values. So make sure that you round these off on the ends of these curves so they don't go up. So those are some of your basics when you're graphing with sine and cosine and using displacement, y displacement, and the amplitude.